Anna Mahmood. I'm with ITSMF USA. Today we're going to be interviewing Paul Wilkinson of GamingWorks. Now, if you haven't heard, Paul's going to be doing not one, but two pre-conference workshops at Fusion, which is going to be taking place in New Orleans, October 7th through the 10th.
That's correct. I'll be doing two workshops at the conference. Let me first give a quick bit of background as to why I'm going to be there.
Absolutely.
I've been in the industry for about 40 years. I've done a lot of the technical roles in IT, and then I moved across to the consulting roles. And I was also an author for ITIL 2 in the architect team for ITIL Practitioner. And in the last 15 years, we've had a company called GamingWorks, in which we develop business simulation games. Now, these business simulation games are there to either help people learn a new best practice theory, such as ITIL, and these games are also used to help teams learn some soft skills. So that will be the two workshops I'll be doing at the conference, both of them based upon our simulation games.
They're called MarsLander and the Phoenix Project. Is
Yep,
that
that's
correct? And for people out there listening who are unfamiliar with either, could you tell us a little bit about each workshop and what attendees are going to take away from the experience?
Yep. Okay. Let me start first with MarsLander. Our very first business simulation game was called Apollo 13, and that was used for ITIL version 2, version 3, version 2011. But now we're moving into an age of the next generation IT service management, such as ITIL 4. So we developed a next generation game building on Apollo 13 called MarsLander. The reason we built it is we kept getting asked by CIOs around the world, how do I make ITIL more agile? Because lots of companies are adopting agile and DevOps ways of working and complaining that ITIL slows everything down, which is why we built the MarsLander simulation. How do you make IT service management agile? Then ITIL 4 came along in response to exactly this need. ITIL was no longer seen as relevant, and it needed to change to align with these frameworks. So then we aligned our MarsLander game to ITIL 4. So what's going to happen in the MarsLander game is people will be confronted with rapidly changing business demands in the game. There'll be agile teams developing software as quickly as possible in the game. And there'll be typical IT service management roles in the game using ITIL. And they're going to have to learn how to translate ITIL 4 theory into practice and do some end-to-end alignment with the business, the agile teams, the supplier teams, and the IT service management and operations teams.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
They'll learn how to actually communicate and collaborate effectively together and apply the concepts, hopefully. If they don't, then I will be playing the mission director in the game, and I will be getting pretty angry and threatening to outsource everybody if I don't get results.
Okay. Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. It sounds absolutely amazing.
Yeah. That was the MarsLander game.
Yes.
The other game we're doing is the Phoenix Project simulation, which is based upon the book with the same name, the Phoenix Project book. And the reason for that is we see lots of companies adopted Agile to start with, and then they found out it wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And that's where suddenly we got DevOps, bringing the developers and operators together. Unfortunately, what we see typically happening in the market now is everybody sees DevOps as continuous integration and continuous deployment tools. So most people seem to think a tool is the solution to DevOps problems, when our global surveys and studies show it's typically a cultural issue, a behavioral issue, and once again, getting end-to-end stakeholders to collaborate together. So in the Phoenix Project game, we put people into the Parts Unlimited organization, which is the organization in the book. And again, I'll play the chief executive officer, and I have lots and lots of demands on the team, and I get very frustrated. And I insist that they start applying DevOps principles. So in the game, not only will the team learn DevOps concepts like CALMs, the 3 ways of DevOps, how to do a stand-up, what is a retrospective, but they'll also learn the need for effective communication and collaboration skills. And again, if they don't apply these communication skills or collaboration skills, I'll get pretty upset. So in both games, I get lots of chances to play my job as CEO or mission director and start shouting at everybody.
Well, sounds fun for you.
It's
let's
fun.
have, or fun for everybody. No, actually, it sounds amazing. You know.
No, and that is you're saying, what are people going to take away at the end of both of the simulations? Because both simulations will be played in a number of game rounds, and in each game round, or after each game round, people will reflect what went well, what needs improving, and at the end of the day, we'll then look back. What did you apply today in this simulation that you need to take away and apply in your organization? And that's usually when we get a flip over of 10 to 15 concrete actions that people can take away. So hopefully not only will they learn something new about ITIL 4 or DevOps, but they'll have some concrete things to take back to the organization.
That sounds great. That sounds great. And for those of you watching, just a reminder, right now we're having a early bird special. It lasts till Thursday. And if you register by Thursday, you actually get to register for a pre-conference workshop, including MarsLander and the Phoenix Project, absolutely free. So be sure to take advantage of that offer by Thursday.
If you dare to take this challenge up, remember,
yeah, exactly.
I'm feeling to translate the theory into practice.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little intimidated, but it really does sound amazing. Can you talk to us a little bit about the benefits of simulation versus traditional classroom learning?
Sure. I'll just get a piece of paper because I've got a quote here, which I often use. It's a quote from Confucius. So it's, thousands of years ago. And he said, "I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand." Now, that is typically one of the problems we have in our industry at the moment. Much of our training is hearing and seeing. Lots and lots of PowerPoint sheets in which trainers tell stories and show hundreds of PowerPoint sheets. So what we do is we tend to give people lots of theory, which they then remember to be able to pass an exam. So in typical classroom training, there's very little chance to actually do practical exercises and translate theory into practice. Whereas a simulation is totally different. In a simulation, basically a one-day simulation is 8 hours of practice doing. So people will play roles in a simulation. They'll get lots of work coming in from the business, incidents, problems, change requests, new projects, features, typically the workload that they see in their daily work. And then they'll get a chance to try and apply the theory that they learnt in a classroom training in the simulated environment. And then they'll realize it's a lot harder than they thought. That's knowing the theory of how a priority mechanism works. But in the game, when the CEO is shouting at you and the application manager is shouting at you and everybody's insisting their work's got the highest priority, how do you deal with priority mechanisms and escalation mechanisms? And who decides, who has a decision-making authority? So they learn there's a lot more than just the theory in getting this stuff to work. Yeah. And the value of the simulation is in your daily work, it often takes weeks, sometimes months before you get feedback as to whether the processes are working. In simulation, we get to play in a number of game rounds, 4 game rounds. And between each game round, we do some instant reflection. What happened when you tried applying that theory? What worked? What didn't work? Why didn't it work? What can we do in the next game round to make it work again? So because they play in 4 game rounds, teams get to learn what I believe is probably the core skill for every single IT organization, and that is the ability for continual learning and improvement. So between each game rounds, teams have to get together around the flip over, discuss, listen to each other, agree 3 priority improvements, execute them in the next game round, and again, measure the impact and the feedback, and learn this iterative improvement.
Excellent. Sounds fabulous.